My name's Kerryne Henich. I have been married to my current husband for, I guess, almost 7 years. We're going on 7 years. We have 5 kids together, so blended family. Um, I have 2 adult children. So my kids are 22 and 19, and his kids are younger. So we have three. I have 3 stepchildren that are, 9, 11, and 4, 13. So yeah, big family, and I don't know what else do I know other than bodybuilding. Like that's kind of the gist of my current situation. So
Yeah, it seems like definitely a lot going on within the
yeah,
family. I'm one of four, so I know having kind of a big-ish family, especially these days,
yeah,
it's a little bit different of a dynamic. I feel like most people are having less and less kids, so just kind of like weird sometimes to meet someone that has experience with that many people in a house, and it's not even that really that many. It's just for the current day, it kind of is, but. Um,
yeah.
what
Yeah, I'm one
what
of 9 kids, so
yeah, so I
I'm
mean, you
from a
definitely
huge
get it.
family. Yeah.
Yeah. And what challenges does that present to you as far as obviously in the bodybuilding world it kind of takes so much attention, so much time. Like how do you manage that kind of relationship between the bodybuilding side of your life and just kind of the, I guess, non-building but bodybuilding side of your life?
Yeah, I mean it is hard to manage. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, having adult children then starting kind of over again with the younger kids, the situations are very different because they have a lot of activities and just different things going on. So, and then we all eat differently too. So trying to manage how to eat around the kids is different. So we just try to make dinners together the same, whether I'm eating something different or not. I still eat dinner with my family, and just try to make that time special between us. So we always eat together. We always do things together that way. Yeah, it really isn't as hard as it probably is for some other people because I've been doing it for so long. I've been competing since 2009, so a really long time. So even when my kids were little, I was doing the same thing. So it just kind of moved over to now doing it again, all over again. So they kind of adjusted to our situation here, but they go back and forth between us and their mom. So it's probably the same for them, coming back
So
here. But
a little bit of kind of like a getting that experience, learning kind of the ins and outs of it, and then taking what you did learn and applying it kind of now, it seems like.
yeah, yeah, just readapting,
Yeah.
to like big kids to little kids. But we all, it's funny because even with my adult children, we all had different diets. Like my son went keto for a while, my daughter was vegetarian. I was eating, for competition diet, and then we had this new family that joined us, and it was like, oh my gosh, we all eat so differently. So we were all making different things every night for everybody. And I kind of related it to. I was telling my husband one time, I don't know why people find it so hard to understand, like, well, why can't you eat the same thing as us? Why it's not the same? People get upset. My husband's upset because I can't eat dinner with him. Well, yeah, you can because it's like when we go to restaurants, we don't all order the same thing. We order something different. And it's the same as your kids grow up, they want different things. You're not always eating the same thing, but you're sitting together and eating together. So we've kind of applied that to our home. Like everyone was eating a different diet. So we were all eating something different, but we sat and ate together. So we kind of do the same thing here.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what led you into the sport of bodybuilding?
I kind of I started a little differently than most people. I actually had an eating disorder for about 8 years, so from like 2000 to like 2008, and it was getting to the point where I was scaring myself a little bit, and I thought, I want to get healthy, but I don't really just want to be like skinny fat. I don't just want to gain weight. If I'm going to do this, I want to look really good still. Like I'm not comfortable just going gung ho and being like, okay, I'm going to start eating again. So I hired a personal trainer, and I told her, like, I want to actually look like you. Like I loved her muscle. She was a figure pro, but she was really petite. She looked really good. And so she started training me and teaching me how to eat healthy. And she's like, why don't you compete? This is the first year for bikini. It was back in 2008 when I started prepping. And I was like, no, she's like, you look good now. Just let's go for the bikini look because you're already kind of there. It's like, no, no, no. I actually want to gain weight. I want to build muscle. I want to look good, but I need to gain weight. I was like 103 pounds. I'm 5'4", so I was really small. And so we started prepping and gaining weight. So the first year I gained, or the first few months or a couple months, I gained like 8 pounds, and I told her I wanted to do figure. So I did the figure show about 8 to 10 weeks later, and I got 5th place. And that was like my first goal. I was like, I'm just going to do one show. That's it. Teach me how to eat, teach me how to gain weight. And then I'll be good. Well, then I kind of got hooked. So we kept going. And after a year and a half, like I was just doing show after show, and I put on probably, I think I was like 122 after that first year and a half. So I put on some size and I was feeling really good. Went to nationals, to USA or to USA's in Vegas. And I got there and I was like, man, I am huge. I feel so big. I've put on all this size. I am feeling amazing. And I was like, holy crap, I am tiny. These girls are just amazing. And I felt really defeated and kind of just like, wow, I will never get that size. I just can't. I'm so narrow. I'm really petite, and kind of felt defeated. So I stepped away from competing for a while, and then I decided, you know what, I miss it. You know, I miss that drive. I miss that, like, just that push to like keep push, or, you know, like working on myself. And I kind of started falling in love with myself through this process of like self-love and like really working on me. And I decided to do bikini. So I made the switch to bikini. Finally, I felt like it was more my look. And so in 2011, 2012, I switched to bikini and just fell in love. Like I just really loved it. And I kept growing. Well, I kept adding lean muscle. I kind of had to drop some size on that a little bit, but I loved it so much. And, you know, I kept feeding myself. It was kind of fun just to actually learn how to eat properly and just train in a way that I've never been able to train before. So
It's interesting because, you know, a lot of the people I talk to, they get into bodybuilding for a specific reason, you know, whether it's to compete, whether it's to, you know, just have something to kind of push them, whether, you know, whatever their reason is. And it's interesting, you kind of had kind of that dual, you know, purpose of, you know, first starting out, you just kind of wanted to take care of yourself. You wanted to put on a little weight. You wanted to kind of learn a little bit about it, how to do those things. And then it kind of transitioned as you kind of, you know, felt more confident and, you know, you achieved the one kind of goal a little bit. You moved into more of that competition side. So it's kind of interesting how you kind of have both of those. It's kind of an evolution really of your journey, I guess.
yeah, I mean, when I was first starting, I wasn't in a really healthy marriage. My marriage was pretty toxic, and I didn't grow up in a home where it was like, oh, you can do anything you want. You know, I didn't grow up feeling like I was going to be this accomplished person or being told like, hey, you can do all these things. It was more like the opposite. And so for me to like do anything big, I had to really like push myself. I had to motivate myself all the time. And I didn't do that. I had really low self-esteem. So to find something like competing where it is very self-motivating, you have to constantly push yourself. You have to believe in yourself. And it really taught me to do that. And, you know, to be in a marriage that wasn't great, I found something in competing where it was like, oh, wow, I'm doing this for me and nobody else. Like, this is something that I could turn to that kind of picked me up and lifted me up when I was in a bad place. And it just felt really good to like escape a little bit from like this chaotic life. And then it was like, this is something I could control and really feel like, wow, you know, this is great. Like, this is kind of keeping me holding me together, I guess, in a way where like I just felt, I don't know, I can't explain it really, but like I just really fell in love with the process and like in love with myself. And I got stronger to the point where eventually like I was able to pull away from that toxic life.
That seems such like a common theme with the people I talk to. It's like, you know, the chaos of the world is, to a lot of people, it becomes easy, it becomes comfortable, it becomes, whether, you know, whether it's good for them or not is a different story, but it becomes this thing that they're used to. And then they, you know, you dip your toe in bodybuilding and you see how much of kind of like the opposite is. It's so much order. There's like a list of things to follow. There's the things, they might not be easy things to do, but you know what to do. It's two different parts, two different, like completely opposite, you know, I guess like the yin and yang of life almost.
Yeah, it's the structure. I think it's like it's almost like an addiction. Like when you have an addiction to something, it's like you crave it, you need it, you need that like fix. Well, with competing, it's like, it's that structure that you need so much. When it's that routine, it's just that knowing that you have something that you can control, right? And when life is chaotic, you feel very out of control, and it's like you don't have anything to grasp onto. But with competing, it's so controlled, and it's just that, like, I don't even know. It's so not out of control. It's so non-chaotic that it's so fulfilling to a lot of people.
Yeah, it kind of gives it a little bit of that balance, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So when you got into the bikini side of it, how long did it take you to kind of get adjusted to it and start to see the success in that side of it?
I was successful from not from the very beginning. It took me about a year to really kind of get my, like, sink into it and get really confident in it, because it was different. Like, I really loved figure. The reason the reason I loved figure so much was because I'm really, really shy. So this is really out of my comfort zone. Like, especially when I first started, I do not like being in front of people. I don't like being the center of attention. So to get on stage for me was like, what the hell am I doing? And most people that know me, they're like, you do what? Like, I don't even like going to pools. I don't like getting in a bikini. I don't like wearing shorts. Like, it's really weird for me. So, yeah, it's like this alter ego that I tapped into. So, yeah, doing the whole bikini thing where I don't have like controlled poses that I have to hit. It's more of like whatever you kind of want to. Super weird for me. So it took me a while, but I would say like 2012, 2013 is when I started getting a little more comfortable with it. And I turned pro in 2015 at Junior Nationals. So I turned 35 in 2014. Yeah, 2014, I turned 35. So I thought like hitting masters was going to be it for me. So I was doing national shows in 2014 through 2015, like hitting all the national shows. And I was getting like last call outs, last call outs, last call outs. Finally, at North Americans, I got second place in the 35 and over and the open both. So I was runner up both show or both classes. Then I got last call outs again. And then finally at junior nationals was like, I wasn't expecting to hit or go pro there. I was expecting to like hopefully get some good feedback, and then maybe at Team U or something next, maybe masters, I would go hopefully get my pro card. But I went pro there. So huge class, wasn't expecting it, went pro. So that was really exciting for me. But yeah, it took me a really long time to like get comfortable. And then from that point on, I just hit the ground running. Like once I turned pro, I just never stopped. And like I try to stay pretty conditioned year round. I don't really have like a bad off season. I try to stay pretty tight. So once I got my pro card, I just kept going.
Did you have any of those similar feelings of, getting to that pro level or even a little bit before that pro level that you had with figure, to where it was like kind of a bit of intimidation with the competition, maybe not for the same reasons, but just, hey, these people are kind of on that next level?
I didn't. I felt like it wasn't even like I never compared myself anymore. Like I went through this, I don't know how to explain it. When I kind of shut myself down to where it was like, okay, I wasn't really like chasing a pro card per se. It was like, if it happens, it happens. But if not, I love this sport so much because of how much it's changed my life in regard of like the inner like self-love that I've received from just going through it all, and like how much my life has changed. So if I do it, awesome. But if not, I still love competing. Like when you're putting yourself on stage and you're being judged, and you're like, it's so subjective, but you're putting yourself out there to like be judged, right? You have to accept feedback. You have to accept the fact that you're being judged. And when you're working so hard for something, you should be doing it for yourself regardless. And that's kind of how I have always felt. So like whatever feedback I got, whatever placing I got, I still always felt like if I get on stage and I'm better than I was before, I won. And so I still apply that to myself to this day. And so when I went pro, it was like, holy crap. I still to this day, I'm like, how did that happen? Because when I don't think that was my best physique, but I always felt like my posing was really good. And that's probably what did it, is I just presented it well. I've had way better physiques. I've had some shows where I did really well and it was like, my posing was probably better. Or, like I always try to like look at all of the angles that maybe did better than others. But yeah, I still think like everyone deserves to be there. We all look amazing. We all work hard, but yeah, I never compare myself to others. I try not to do that. And I tell my clients the same thing, like, don't get online, don't start looking at other people, don't psych yourself out, just focus on like you versus you. And so that's something I really try to do.
So as a coach, how do you kind of impart that the mental side of things to the athletes, because as much as you can kind of prepare them physically, it's still like a mental experience. You're still going through it in your own head. How do you try to kind of best prepare your athletes mentally?
That's the hardest part. So it's your mental muscle has to be stronger than your physical muscle. Like I tell my clients that all the time. It's such a mental sport. You have to have like a really strong mental game to compete. And, I try to prepare them for every part of it. Like going through the process, you're going to be so excited. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to compete. You're going to have the best time. But then the post show, the mental part is the worst. Like I try to keep on them, keep in constant contact with them, make sure they're feeling good post show. But yeah, preparing you mentally is probably the hardest part of being a coach, because you have clients who ride this high because they've done really well, and then all of a sudden they hit this low where it's like, okay, now what? So as a coach, I think for all coaches, it's probably the hardest part. I mean, I still go through that low where it's like, oh, I want to compete again, but I know I need to take some time off. It's staying off social media. So if I have girls that are really struggling, I'll tell them, shut down your social media for a while. Don't even look, don't get on there. Don't start looking at other people. Just get off of it. So that's probably the one thing. I'm not even on social media a lot. I really I get on, I post a couple things here and there. I look through things my clients tag me and I repost those, but it's hard for me to get on and scroll through because I just don't have time. It's just, it's one of those things where I'd rather spend my time with my family or, with my client or doing my clients work or working, at the gym. But stay off social media. Just don't go searching for things to find to make yourself feel bad, things like that. So I always tell my clients, just get off of that kind of stuff and then focus on what you want to improve on. So if you had feedback to do something, from the last show, let's just focus on that. Keep your mind strong rather than comparing yourself.
This episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. Fountain wants to help you with your potential low T. Why do I say potential low T? Because a large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. They simply live with the symptoms that include weight gain, sluggishness, and erectile dysfunction and have no idea of the cause. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The Fountain team are medical professionals who have years of experience in the industry and expertise in TRT. These labs are often covered by insurance and you may not have to pay anything out of pocket. The topical treatment is easy to use, just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. So if you're ready to gain back your energy, drive, and mental clarity, lose that stubborn weight, and just generally feel happier, check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. From a coach's perspective and, yourself being an athlete, what are some things that you feel like people may struggle with as far as not maybe knowing that, hey, we need to do this, or not doing them well enough, maybe not putting enough energy and effort into it?
I think honestly, the one thing people overlook the most is probably just the mental aspect of it and reversing. People don't focus on, they're so focused on the actual prep and then show day. And then they're like, okay, well, peace out. I did good. I'm going to just take some time off and then I'll be back when I'm ready to do a show. And it's okay, good luck on your reverse. Cause your reversing is probably more important than actual prep. Because your body is in such a fragile state when you're in your reverse that that's when you can really screw up your metabolism. You get so people go through the post-show blues and they don't realize it's going to happen because they're on such a high that's when a lot of damage can happen to your body. They gain tons of weight after because they binge. And so for me, it's that reverse diet. And some coaches don't even give people a reverse diet. They don't even put their clients through reverses. So for me, that's probably the most important part. And I usually try and stress that when I start a prep with someone.
As a coach, do you how do you kind of keep your clients' health in the front of your mind as well as theirs, as far as do you do any blood stuff? Do you tell them to get any blood work done? Do you tell them to look for these things? What do you kind of do to try to keep that on their mind as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when I do consultations with people, I tell them, like, I ask them how recent have you had labs done, and if not, I recommend that they get them done as soon as possible because, I'm 43, and so having been competing so long, like labs are important. My thyroid, I'm hypothyroid, and I have been for years, but I've been through different types of prep with different coaches, and I've had some pretty extreme diets with different coaches and extreme preps with different coaches, and my body's kind of been through it. So I'm at this point now in my life where I'm dealing with hypothyroidism, extreme hormone issues, and gut issues that we're trying to work through so that I can have the best preps I can possibly have. And my food's probably the highest it's ever been, but I've had to work really, really hard to get to this point. And it's been a struggle. And I don't ever want my clients to have to go through that, the stuff that I've had to go through. So for me, it's super important that one, like, especially at the age of 35 and over, that we are checking our hormones, because when your hormones are tanked, your body's not going to do anything. And so, we on Fit Body Fusion, we do have a hormone specialist that we can refer people to if they don't have a doctor that will run their labs. And thank goodness we have her, because she has helped so many of our clients. She's helped me. But we really, really are thankful to have that resource. And it's very, very vital to us that our clients are in their best health possible before we do a prep.
And do you think that bodybuilding, do you think that they do, I don't want to say like a good or a bad job, but what is your opinion on the job that they do as far as like, NPC, IFBB, in terms of keeping the real side of what can happen in the sport, not necessarily the crazy deaths or anything like that, but like just like what you're experiencing, how do you think they handle keeping people informed on the things that can be real side effects versus, we all know, like, you can get on stage, you can look great, and you can, win show, things like that. We all know the good sides of it, but do you feel like that there's enough like public recognition of, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not talking about maybe the death side of aspect of it, because I think that does get, kind of its show, but like the things that you're talking about.
I mean, I think as bodybuilders, we all know like the dangers involved if you're doing certain things, and that's each person's individual decision on what they're willing to do with their bodies. But it's also a coach's responsibility to explain to their clients, especially if they're putting them on things or asking them to do certain things, to give them that, hey, that if you do this, this could happen, or it's even the person's responsibility to do some research. I mean, I would never expect anyone to do anything if they weren't researching it, and I wouldn't do anything if I wasn't researching it. So I think it's every individual's responsibility to make sure they're aware of what they're putting in their bodies, what they're taking, what they're doing. So that's how I feel about that.
Make sure you're hiring a good coach, and make sure,
Exactly.
your body's ready to go through that process. That's something I've heard a lot too, is like, if you're not in a great state to begin, then maybe don't begin yet. Get to the mentally and physically, get to those levels to where you're starting up high, because it's going to take you down a little bit, both mentally, emotionally, physically. So if you're starting at a kind of a bad position to begin with, it's not going to end well, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's why for us, like, health is always super important. And it's so hard, especially if you're starting with a new coach and you're already in a huge deficit. We try to reverse our clients back up before we start a really good prep, because you can't start from zero and then go to zero.
Right.
You have to have something to work down from. And so it's really hard to make people understand that, because they're like, well, I'm already in a deficit. Why can't we just keep going? It's like, well, we got to have something to pull from. So we got to get your food up a little higher first, and get your metabolism going again. But yeah.
At what point did you start to kind of have the thoughts, have the ideas, or the belief maybe that, hey, I can kind of keep this ball rolling and, competitively, and get maybe to the highest level? Like, did it take a few pro shows? Did you go into your pro debut thinking, hey, this is kind of my goal, or when did that kind of click for you?
It's funny. Like, I don't know if I ever really like had a thought like, hey, I'm going to just do this thing. But I did my pro debut. it was probably 2 months after I turned pro. So it was, I just kept going because I felt like, hey, I'm just going to keep getting tighter. Like from here, I should just keep going. So I turned pro in June and I did my pro debut in August. And then I did a show in September and then November. Like I just kept going. Like I've always been able to compete several times a year and it's not ever been hard for me to just keep going. I feel like I don't ever get tired or I don't know. I just keep going. But so I did several shows and I did pretty well. Like it wasn't horrible. Like I think I made top 10 my debut. And then I did a master's show in September and then again in November. And I was doing pretty well. So then that was 2015. 2016, I did pretty well. And then 2017, same. It was like I wasn't ever like placing super duper well, but I wasn't like not doing well. And then in 2017, I did pretty good. So 2018, I was like, okay, this is the year I'm gonna try and go to Olympia. Like this is my year. I just threw it out there. This is gonna be my year. And so it was the first year they did like points only. You couldn't just win and go, you had to do points. And so I did 13 shows that year. And I was placing top 5 pretty frequently. And I was pretty high on the point list the whole year. And then I finally won Patriots that year. So I won my first pro show. And I went to Olympia. So that was like the 1 year that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna throw everything out there and I qualified for Olympia. So that was like the 1 year where I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus really hard. And it was the hardest year of my life as far as like mentally, because I had like a spreadsheet going with like everyone who was in the point system. And every week I was like watching scores and like telling him out and being like, okay, I have to get this many points to stay back up there. It was honestly the most stressful year I've ever had in my life. But like, it was so gratifying. And I remember like when I saw that I had made it, I was like, no, I didn't make it. They're going to email me and they're going to be like, just kidding. Psych. And even until like, I got like my email saying, okay, here's your, you know, your packet or your whatever. I was like, that's not true. Like they're gonna take it away from me. I just know it. Like I didn't believe it until I actually got there. And it was such a surreal feeling, just actually being there. And I wish that I had like taken it in more because I was just in such shock the whole time being there. Because it's like something we always dream of, right? Like to go to Olympia. And it was crazy. So that was probably the 1 year that I really focused on it. And then ever since then, it's just been like, now I'm just competing because I just love the sport so much. And I don't have like these Olympia dreams or goals anymore because I've already done it. And it was such a surreal moment for me. And I worked so hard to get there. I mean, if I went, awesome, but like my goals are just different now. I don't know.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. This episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. A large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The topical treatment is easy to use, just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. Check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. That experience for you at Olympia, what was it about the experience itself, I guess, that you gained so much from, that you learned from? Was it the interactions with other athletes? Was it, what was it that you felt like you took away kind of the perspective, kind of a new perspective, I guess?
I think it was just like, it had nothing to do with the other athletes. I feel like when I compete, like I don't have like, I'm not a fangirl of anybody. Like I've always just been like, we're all just the same. We're all the same. Like it's just a person. Like I don't get like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have like, oh, they're better than me or they're better than because there's so and so that's Miss Olympia or whatever. I don't get that way about people. Like I feel like we're all just bodybuilders. We're all just the same. And I don't think I'm better than anybody because I'm a pro. Like I'm just Kerryne Henich. Like I don't know why anyone would think I'm anyone special. Like I'm just a person. And so when I was there, it was just like I knew how hard I worked, and after being told like most of your life, like you'll never amount to anything. Sorry. To actually do that was like, to actually be there and like work so hard to get somewhere. For me, it was like so surreal to be there. But I put in all that work and like I actually did it.
And going past that, you know, into the next seasons, was it almost like a relief to just say, hey, we did it, and now it's just kind of it's just a different emotion almost going into it?
Yeah, like I remember like having that like done, it was like, holy crap, like I actually like, I mean, I've set a lot of goals for myself and I put a lot of pressure on myself to like achieve things, but like that's what I never thought I would achieve ever. And so to have done that, and it was like, oh my gosh, okay, now that's done. Like, check. Okay, now I can just kind of just have fun, because before that, when you're competing for something like that, you're constantly chasing like what the judges want from you, right? Because they're telling you, okay, you need to be leaner, you need to be more conditioned, you need to be tighter, you need to be this, you need to be that. And it's every judging panel tells you something different. So it's like, okay, last week they said I need to be this. This week they're saying I need to be that. And it's like it changes week to week. And for me, like my body is, I either am like too lean or too hard, or I'm not hard enough or not lean enough. So it's like I'm always like this in between, because I just have that body type. So I was finally like, you know what? I just want to look how I want to look. I want to look good for me, and I'm just gonna stop chasing this look that the judges want from me. And that was the year that I just went for it. And it felt so good to like finally do it, that then after that, it's like, all right, I'm doing what I feel good, how I feel good. If I feel like I look good on stage, that's all I care about. And that's what I've been doing ever since. It's just like, just getting on stage, feeling good and confident.
You're an NPC judge, correct?
Yeah. So I've been judging shows since probably 2015. Yeah.
Gotcha.
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a judge, you know, having that experience that you just kind of went through as a judge, how do you try to be as open or as, you know, obvious with the expectations as possible?
So when I'm judging shows, obviously, like I love it because I get to sit like on this side and actually like see from this perspective what the judges are seeing from me. And I have things I'm really particular about when I'm judging shows. And yeah, I'm even the same with my own clients when I'm watching them pose. Like I'm really picky about certain things. I'm picky about posing. I'm picky about stomach control. And I'm picky about that with everybody. You know, there's things that I don't want to see, and that's your stomach popping out when you're turning. You know, there's just certain things that I'm super picky about, even with myself. If I see that myself, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Dang it. You know, so there's certain things that even that I've heard from judges critiquing me on, that it's like, yeah, you're right, I did do that. You're right, I saw that. So I'm just the same when I judge shows. Like I make notes of things. I'm picky about suits. I'm picky about hills. I'm picky about all kinds of stuff. So I just make notes. And it's not that I'm judging or docking points on those things, but you know, if their physique is on point, their physique's on point. But there's other things that I'll give girls feedback on, especially when it comes to the bikini division, that would maybe help them look even better, whether it's a suit color or, you know, just the way that they're posing, that would flatter them better, because those are things that I would want my clients to hear if they were on stage and if someone was judging them.
Working with other judges that, I don't want to say judge differently, but maybe are a bit more, maybe lenient isn't the best word, but maybe not as picky. How do those relationships mesh with like different judges with different kind of like personalities and different eyes and different things like that?
It's fun because I think it's good to hear other people's perspectives and see it from other people's point of views too, because, you know, everyone's going to have a different idea of what they view each division as and like what maybe they prefer. And that's what this sport's all about. It's all subjective. We all have different ideas of what is ideal to them. And so sometimes it's kind of fun that we don't always agree, and to hear like why, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, and then I can be like, oh, I see what you're saying too. You know, it's kind of nice to get that perspective from other people's point of views too. So I don't mind it. I think that's the whole point of bodybuilding and like having different judges on a panel. You shouldn't always all agree, but most of the time I think we do agree.
Being a judge in a, you know, a subjective sport like that,
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoke and Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
Is there any kind of like idea, you get together and you these are the things, obviously you have like the standards, obviously you have the things that you're looking for, right? But is there anything, hey, these are the things that we're going to be particularly looking for. These are going to be the things that we're going to be, and whether that be per show, whether that be, kind of per year, how, because in my head, it's like you have these different athletes in one year, bigger might be better. The next year, leaner might be better. So how, it's just like in my head, I'm trying to think, how does that come about? Like, how does one year this win and how does one year that win?
So we don't ever talk before the show. We don't get like a game plan going before a show. What changes the way the winning or the top 5 look is based on like who's on stage. So sometimes like you might have a class with like 10 people and the majority of them look a certain way, and there might be a couple that look differently. So it kind of has to go with like the majority. So if you have like, I don't know, like the majority of the class is not quite as hard, well, you can't go with like a harder top 5 because they're just not there. So that's why sometimes the top 5 maybe look different. So it has nothing to do with like, they're changing the way the division's looking. It's just what came that day. And sometimes it's like, there's not anyone that really stands out. So we kind of have to like pick with what's there. So that's why sometimes it's just different. And then other times, like say one person's doing like every single thing and they come out the first time, they're super nervous. They're not hitting their poses. They don't look great, but then they come out again, they're not as nervous. They really nail it and they look really good. So they might place higher and beat people that just beat them because they just killed it. So that's why sometimes you see a variety in like where they're placing and why they're beating other people suddenly. So that's why the top 5 might change. But that happens all the time. And people get mad because they're like, well, how did they beat me this class, but not that class? And it's like, well, they just came out and looked better because they weren't as nervous. So things like that happen, but it's usually just based on what's on stage and what we have to choose from.
So it kind of is like the athletes in a way are in control of the division, and in some ways, if they kind of banded together and say, hey, this is what we're going to look like this year, you wouldn't have much choice.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what happens. And it happens everywhere, every state, every show. Like you just never know what's coming.
So moving forward in like the sport, how do you see it changing and evolving? Just due to, I feel like social media, it's become more popular. It's something that a lot more people are experimenting with and trying out. So how do you see that affecting the sport in the next kind of like 10 to 15 years with, kind of the new generation taking over? Like what do you think that new generation is going to do?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I feel like it's changed so much, even just in the last 10 years. It's so hard to predict what the next 10 will be like, but I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, even the bikini division, how much that's changed, and throwing wellness in, like even wellness from, when it first came out to now has changed so much. So it's so hard to say. I imagine they're just going to keep adding new divisions. I don't know, just to like balance out the way things keep changing. But gosh, I don't know. Who knows? I have no idea.
So for your own personal, journey, what do you see as kind of the participation in the sport? Obviously coaching and judging, you can continue to do that, but do you see yourself moving into any other roles in the sport, or, what is maybe the next couple of years look like for you?
I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. I still love competing. I still feel like I'm hanging in there. So I think I have a few years left in me. But yeah, coaching for me it's amazing. I love it so much. And I'm having a great time with that. And my clients are amazing. So coaching, still competing. I'm praying someday a Masters Olympia comes out because I would love to be able to do both. But until that happens, I keep saying they're not getting me off stage till that comes out. So it needs to happen soon because I'm getting old. But yeah, that would be my ultimate dream, is to, do that before I retire. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
What would you say to yourself if you could kind of go back in time? Hey, this is something to think about. This is something to keep in mind.
Honestly, like there's times when I think I wish I would have just done bikini from the beginning, because it was like the very first year bikini had come out, and I was so hell bent on like, no, I need to do figure, I need to grow and be bigger, and it just wasn't the right division for me. But if I had started like that first year when bikini first came out, like what would my journey have been like if I had done that? And I think about that all the time. And so part of me is like, go back and start there. Be one of those very first bikini bros, like from the very beginning. But at the same time, like I'm so grateful for my journey, like how it's been, and being able to evolve into it, and just how much my life has changed because of that and going through that process. So I can't really like be ungrateful for that, because it's changed me a lot. But yeah, I think just, I don't know, because I feel like I've been so patient. Like everything happens for a reason. So I don't know that I would ever want to change any part of that. So I don't know that I would do that. But sometimes I think that, like, go back in time, change that one thing just to see what my journey would have been like, how different it would have been. But
that's such a tough one, because like you said, you learn from those things, those challenges. You might see something as a mistake until, you realize what the purpose of, going through it was. And then you're like, okay, wow, I can't imagine not having kind of this insight, or not having this experience to push me through these other, more challenging times. But
yeah,
it was really good getting to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about your journey and about your experience.
thank you. It was so nice to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you want to, before we head out, if you want to share your social media or anything like that, you can go ahead and do that.
Sure. Instagram is just my name, Kerryne Henich _ IFBB Pro. That's really it.
Awesome.